Warning: the information given during this podcast is from professionals discussing situations from our experience and sharing knowledge.
We are not treating or diagnosing what you are personally experiencing, and if you are having difficulties, please seek professional help.
Hello and welcome. This is
It's Not You.
It's Them.
I'm Lauren.
And I'm Rich.
This series is about checking in and looking at ways to explore what is going on around you.
And today's episode is called Have I Hated You Before? It is, yes, definitely. Have I hated you before? If you've been in that dating scenario where I'm like, I date the same types of people, what is going on with me? I don't understand this. This is like a recurring theme. It's just in a different packaging, but it comes up a lot. I've definitely had this in my dating life. Even though they look different, there's similar sort of patterns of problem of behaviour. Just keep coming back round again and again and again. And
I see
you
this quite commonly in my clientele with my inmates that I deal with of dating crazy women. So yes. So relationship patterns are common. Yes.
Relationship patterns, but there's this amazing book called How to Love by Pat Love, which I think we're going to dig into a bit more. And I think I've read it after your recommendation, and I have to say, it gave me a completely different. Let's side note. Yes, it was written late 90s, early 90s. So if it was rewritten today, I think it would also include all the other bits of positive, embracive stuff. But failing that though, there's a lot in that. It helped me understand and break down the stages. I think that you're going to take us through the stages.
Yes, I am. So The Truth About Love is by Dr. Patricia Love. She, I was fortunate enough in my college experience over here in America. I went to West Virginia University. She was a professor for the semester, and she taught my relationship section and was kind of life altering. She made a joke when she came in and said that if you're in a relationship, you will not be in that relationship when we finish the semester.
Wow.
And three people that were in almost engaged, like one couple was actually in the class, and then two others actually did. And it also taught me I was in quite a toxic situation, kind of holding on to somebody I'd been with, and that was the final straw. That was, you know what, I'm out, right? And being able to allow myself to do that. So I think what's interesting about love itself is that we're fed this BS, to be honest, that love is this star-crossed lovers across the bar, meeting, Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, Disney, like all of this stuff that you're supposed to meet somebody and it's supposed to be an instant moment and then that's forever love.
And they'll also change to fit the perfect person who's going to look after you, take care of you. So it totally disenfranchises everybody else to look after themselves and be good and positive about themselves. It's all going to be on somebody else. So this is already gaslighting us to hell.
No one wants to take accountability for anything. It's always everyone else's fault. Right. Yeah. Okay. So let's break it down. So Pat Love it comes from the Gottman Institute as well. It's kind of very 80s, 90s, but it works. It still makes sense today. It's very powerful once you understand it. So she said that there were 5 stages of love. Now, the first stage, the infatuation stage, is biologically built into us so that our species survives, right? That's what it's for. That is that primal, reproductive part of us, that biology. This person's the funniest thing since sliced bread. They're so cool. They're so different. When your phone buzzes, you get really excited. Like you're all up in their business, everything, right? All of that biology that's saying, procreate.
Which
it feels wonderful, right? Your brain gets flooded with dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, estrogen, testosterone are kind of at its highest levels, which is why people have sex like rabbits when they first meet somebody. And then that confusion of why it dies out, like starts to set in. So let's talk a little bit more about that. So when we're in love, we make complete and utter, we are blindsided to any of their weird or disgusting or unusual habits, right? You cannot see it. Now, people think, well, obviously you can see it. No, this
was what blew my mind when it said, it's like that you were literally, they could say, I've only killed 3 people, and your response would be like, but you didn't mean it. And it's like, how many times have you heard your friends say that about people that they should not be dating? And this about the chemical bit blew my mind. I was like, I understand everything.
Well, serotonin, dopamine, and oxytocin are supposed to be produced by your brain naturally anyway. Yeah. Now, if people have had trauma or experiences or genetically predisposed to having less serotonin production, when they are in love, you can actually get addicted to that first part of being in love with somebody, right? Some people are just built to be in love and that's it. They can't actually have the relationship side. But the oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine incapacitate your ability to think and see rationally, right? So like you just said, if you're sat there with a sister and you're going, girl, this dude, no, he's a red flag. He's just misunderstood. No, he's definitely a serial killer. Get out. Right? So, but that part can last anywhere from kind of 6 weeks to 6 months. Right now, unfortunately, in our immediacy place, what can happen is once all of those, your brain is not built to have that amount of hormones flooding it for an extended period of time. It's not built for it, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't happen suddenly. It doesn't happen slowly, sorry. It happens like a train wreck, right? Yeah. Yep, the shutters come down, someone flicks on the spotlight, and you're like, what happened? What? Your partner will do something or experience something that you suddenly look at them like, I didn't like that. And you might start suddenly seeing all the things your friends have been telling you. Oh, they don't, they keep leaving the toilet seat up. They keep spitting toothpaste on my mirror. I keep finding their socks everywhere. All of this stuff is called post-rapture. Now, the reason why it's called post-rapture, this next stage is post-rapture because essentially you'll start to see the cracks appear. Now, unfortunately, most people have either had a child or living together or have married the person sometimes by this point.
And how far into it would you say this would normally be? Is this like...
It depends on how intense the person is, their genetic disposition for those hormones. Some people can do 6 weeks and they're over it. Some people are doing 8-9 months. It was a whirlwind romance. They got married on a cruise ship in the Bahamas, and then they get back and realize they've married a sociopath. And people can be like, it's almost like turning the cold water on, like what's it called? Waterboarding. It's sudden, it's like disconnecting, it doesn't make sense. Like, I love this person, but they keep doing this weird shit. Like, I don't know how to conceptualize or process this information because all of the hormones have left, and now you're left with, is that what you looked like before? Like,
this is very different to, I went to bed with a 10 and woke up with a 2. This is not this. This is that. That's not that. That's not.
This is not the one night. This is not the one night stand and the walk of fame and any of that stuff. No, this is relationship. You've invested some time into this person.
And you've done dating. You've probably been intimate. You've probably you swapped bodily fluids. It's like there's a whole like thing that's happened. So you connect with somebody, and then all of a sudden that bit of, it's like excitement after you just bought that purchase. If you bought that car, you bought that thing, and then after a while you're like, but this gear stick sticks, or the door is a bit wonky, or it's this part of it.
Yeah, and this kind of, you've been a couple, you may have had a kid with them, and you've watched them become a father, and blah, 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 and you're building this life, right? You think you're building this life.
Yeah.
And then the wheels come off. Now, what typically happens is they say most people within 5 years of being with somebody, you would have witnessed them going through a life event, right? Whether that's loss of job, an accident, it might be loss of a family member, it might be having to adapt to a huge situation, like the fucking world ending, the pandemic. But if you haven't been with somebody for at least 5 years, you will not have seen them go through a major life event. typically speaking, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So you will not have seen them react to stress, moving house, maybe, trauma, how they respond to a situation, a life or death situation. You will have only seen them through this hormone flooded where they could do no wrong.
Right. Yeah.
So when those glasses come off and you've witnessed your partner, actually, they are shit under stress, right? They're around the corner freaking out. And you're like, what are you doing? Are you all right? Like, you're not the strong savior type I needed. I'm the one with my stuff together now, and I'm having to fix this. I don't like that. Like, you're supposed to be fixing it.
Yeah.
So it starts to have that disconnect between what they think is happening and what is actually happening. Now, the sex may have diminished to this point where it's not as wild or as hot and heavy, but it might be what you need it to be still, or things have started you're trying to spice things up again because you don't realize that it's not you, it's your hormones, right? It might have been like, well, I'm not into it tonight, or I don't really feel like it, or someone tries to start bringing masks and videos and whips and everything else into it to try and quote unquote spice it up. You're just hormone deficient at this point. It's not someone's going to come dressed in like a nurse and things are going to get crazy.
It's almost like trying to chase that first.
You're chasing the high. You're chasing the love high.
You're chasing the love high.
Chasing love high.
It doesn't mean that you love them any less at this point. It just means that bit's there. You're never gonna get the love high back again.
Yeah.
But it's gonna evolve into something else.
Right. Now, if you can tolerate the crack,
right,
then you can move into what's called discovery. Now, if you don't tolerate the crack, most people separate. Right. So rather than stick with, well, do I actually love this person, right? Like, yes, they keep leaving the seat up. Yes, they're disorganized. Yes, they never do the washing up and it does my head in. But they are worth more, right? My connection to them. You have to have friendship underneath it. You have to have that honesty and commitment and trust. You can't just jump into a relationship with somebody and not have any substance. People don't put time and effort into the substance. Who do they vote for? What do they believe in? What religion do they have? How do they feel about raising children? What money habits do they have? All of these things that we don't... Ariel doesn't talk to Eric about any of that in Little Mermaid.
No, she's sitting there like, oh, I've got legs, but I can't talk. Funny that. And
then Cinderella's over there dropping her shoe like she's got a shoe habit. Like, we didn't talk... Yeah. Who wears flash shoes? Girl. No.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and... typical charming, like, you can't remember my face. You've been staring at it all by a shoe. You're going to match me up with a shoe, but not my face. Like, where have you been looking on?
You searched every hole in the kingdom and you finally got to me? No. So that post-rapture, most people don't understand. You're just now left in the daylight rather than this weird lovey-dovey phase. So if you do step forward through that post-rapture, you do end up in discovery. Now, discovery is a part where you choose to find and connect and to rekindle or kindle parts of the relationship that are important to you. Hobbies, connection, memories, making memories. People get stuck in the 9 to 5 and the jobs and everything else. People don't have money for stuff. But to get creative with somebody, having a movie night where you do, you watch Netflix and pop popcorn in the microwave, it's still the same experience as going to the movies with somebody. Right. But people don't want to get creative enough. They just want to have that lasting, this person is my undying breath, rather than, I'm just trying to make it to the next day with this person that I kind of like. So
sounds like a lot of hard work being in that phase.
It is hard work. We are not taught distress tolerance skills to withstand unhappiness, whether it's disillusionment, whether it's, actually they're not superhero, they're just normal.
But do you think that there's a difference between being with somebody that you're like maybe is wrong for you? Because this, like, when you get through when the love high's gone, you can say like, no, there's a lot of this person I don't like. So it's I think it's a lot of work to kind of work through it if you're like, yeah.
And that's when those outside influences can be damaging, is because you don't have that secure sense of self. to say whether, no, we've talked about it, we have a functioning adult relationship, we're trying to figure out our differences, I keep doing this, he keeps doing that, we both want to work on that and are both actively working on that. Versus someone who is controlling, abusive, dismissive, all of those things that actually you need to get your stuff and get out. And that's when those relationships get, that toxicity really sort of ramps up, is around that post-rapture. Because if you're with a narcissist or a sociopath, they're going to have fed you whatever Disney lies they need to have fed you to keep you complicit in their lies. Right? Suddenly, you wake up and you're not quite sure, I don't know if I believe you anymore. The gaslighting kind of steps in, all of that negative stuff.
Because part of me saying, is that also an opportunity when they go kind of could use that as the exit of the love high is gone, they could then start saying, oh, it's because you don't do this, this is why we don't feel that.
Absolutely.
They could use the absence and then replace it with blankety blank something else and blame you to try and control it. Like, okay,
yeah, because any good narcissist or sociopath doesn't actually have that brain reaction. They don't have the capacity to experience emotion in the way that quote-unquote normal people do. Yeah. So they've just been biding their time.
Right, so they've not experienced the love high at all. They just be like, no, they bypassed it.
You have something they need, right?
Yeah.
And discovery is one of the longest stages of love, which is continuing to make peace with, resolve, fine tune what it is that both of you are in it for, and continue to choose each other every day.
That's I love that as a thing. You continue to choose each other.
And that connects inside. Yeah, I mean, you could be 30 years down the line, and people we're still fascinated when someone's been married 50, 60 years. Like, what's the secret? There's some big secret. And everybody will say, talk to each other. Talk to each other, make peace with someone's faults, compromise. Things where you're putting, if you're having arguments, in the back of your head should be, is the person worth the argument?
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Is you being right better than you being in a relationship? Now, if the answer is yes, get your stuff and leave, right? Because you're done. You're done, and I don't know why you're still there.
Around.
Yeah. But if it's not, then being able to own, all right, I'm out of this. I'm just gonna go away. I'm gonna go listen to music. I'm gonna do my thing, and then we'll talk about it later on.
Yeah.
Just letting go of being able to let go of some things, and then not let go of the ones that are important, but being able to communicate the ones that are important. And then the final one is that continuing, choosing, claiming love. That knowing that this person does your head in, knowing that this person, you could just kill them, right? When they're snoring in the middle of the night and you're just looking at them like, if I just put a pillow over their face,
Yes. Yeah.
But
oh my God.
Love is it's a process. It's not something that's immediate. It's not a drug. It's not hormones. It's a process, and it's about growing old with somebody, or growing and building something with somebody that has the value that you need it to have. But we are gaslighted by Disney, and we are sold
another place. It's not just Disney. Let's just put that in there. We're not just blaming Disney and stuff. It's just the first that comes to mind.
No, yeah, I'm a millennial. Disney's been something that I've been grown up with. I think they're a huge orchestrator in the messages we received as children about fairy tales and this unreachable. And if people find it, that's amazing, right? There are the outliers. They're the ones that, I just met her in a bar and I married her 3 months later and we've been married 20 years. I'm so happy for you, right? Because you went through the stages of love and you still stayed the test of time. I'm happy for you if you're happy. Let me rephrase that. I'm happy for you if you're happy.
Yeah.
But if you've got what you need or are getting what you need.
Because the movie magic or whatever, we're sold on the outlier, and the outlier is not the norm. It is the outlier not the norm, and everybody seems to think that they're part of that. This outlier is their experience right now. They want to believe that with everything, you know.
Relationships in life, grocery shopping. How many apps have like people that you can put? Well, I want someone that's this, or this, and if you're not, don't bother talking to me. Well, all right, like at least they're being honest, like, you know what I mean? But it's very off-putting and very difficult to navigate. But those apps are almost taking out that hormone side, so that when you finally meet this person, you're then having that delayed oxytocin, serotonin, dopamine stuff, and then you're two years into a relationship, but you're not. You're only in that first phase of love. Yeah. So
which is weird, because this is something that I had as a project worker when I covered Hampshire and stuff like that. Is there was definitely this thing that was happening where young people were having relationships with people in different cities. They had a full-blown emotional relationship with it that they'd never actually physically met, but had this emotional connection in different cities for months. And it was like it was completely new. And I think there's that element of, while you can connect with somebody online, you know, like, you're not getting that physical read because they're not in that space that you're in. Because if you feel in a comfortable space in your room or your living room, that's the feeling that you're feeling, not what's coming through the screen.
Yeah, and I was in a 5-year long distance relationship with someone I'd met at a camp in America, and even though we'd met in person, our relationship developed online. But then I was only with that person kind of 2 weeks at a time when I'd went over to see them. So I was never ever stepping into that post-rapture, or I was experiencing post-rapture online and putting it down to we're apart, we're struggling, rather than being able to consciously be aware that this is not okay. This behavior is not just online, it's actually happening in real life. And it took me such a long time and a lot of damage to process. It's not me, it's them. Obviously I'm responsible for my own actions, but to understand that what's happening isn't because it's happening online. It's happening because this person and myself are just not gonna do okay. I think 90 Day Fiance, Married at First Sight, Love Island, Dating in the Dark, all of, you know, the Undateables, all of this stuff that we watch with this, like, oh my god, we ship them, we're such a cute couple and we hope they stay together, and then you read down the comments, no, they left after 72 hours, they now hate each other. Like, you don't see any of that. You see the initial spark, the following them throughout, the Love Islands, the relationship drama. We're trying to process or make sense of, what am I not doing that I'm not with someone? Well, first of all, why do you have to be with someone to be happy? Right, let's talk about that attachment, your relationship. There's a really good video from Medea. And I love Tyler Perry with that. I've used it 1,000 times with clients. Which is, you should be working on yourself. That time is for you to figure out what you want, what you need, get your life sorted, right? If you're living with parents or whatever else, why? Like, conceptually, why? We all know no one can afford it, right? But in the world's ending, but but how can you be in a relationship in your 30s with somebody when you still live with mum and dad? Like, are you waiting for someone to be with so you can move out with them? That's a bad idea. Like, that's
not a business. That's almost like, I need someone to break me out of here. And that the job description become very short list of what they actually need to have to get you out, and that's not
the compromises you would make, and the stress you would put yourself through over the fact that of just, I need this need met and that's it. That's not the case. Like, relationships are hard work. They're ugly. They can be depressing at times. You're going to have highs and lows. There's going to be moments where you have to give up some things that you didn't necessarily know you were going to have to give up, and find this life that you're carving out for each other. But we're not sold that or taught that. And I think that was interesting when I sent you the book, our conversations afterwards, of what the hell?
It made so much more like it's like having an emotional literacy is essentially what it is. Like, this is the structure, this is how it works. I mean, I have to say that like the criticism thing was around the fact that there was no queer relationships at all.
I totally agree, and I did mention that in the class was, is this true for LGBT relationships as well? Yeah. And she owned that humans are humans, regardless of, biology is the same regardless of sexual preference, but that there wasn't another conversation that needs to have happened within the LGBT community.
Yeah, I mean, because then it's like, well, they've shown me, like, people can say, oh, we're just heteronormalizing it, and it's like, oh, we're just trying to assign it into a straight concept of a relationship, which may or may not be true, because we don't know what it's discussed like to be like, because almost if you're coming from a place of, you have to, like, the norm is heterosexual and you have to, like, you're not that, so then it's almost like having to be at peace with not conforming. Then it also applies to relationships. Are you part of a throuple? Are you part of this? How should your... There's a lot more freedom because there's a lot less rules, and there was not that much rules to give in the first place. And it feels like even if we had the basic structures taught, you then have a starting point, kind of like, does this feel right for me?
I think there's a lot less fucks given, honestly, about... There's a lot more allowances made far too quickly, I think. And both of us are from the LGBT community, and I think it's important to acknowledge that and sort of... We are, even though we're looking through the heteronormative examples, actually we're filtering it through our own experience. I've been in a I've been in a throuple, I've been in all sorts of different relationships, and I can only speak to my experience, which is the end result is still the same, which is humans trying to connect with humans. Now, how you get there, right? LGBT, like you said, there's less. I think rules, we can use the word boundaries. There's less boundaries, I think, with some immediate LGBT relationships. There's a lot more freedom. You're absolutely right. There's a lot more exploration because there's less to be tied down to. I don't know what, something like that.
It's almost like you have to reject the script because that's what you're not. Well, this is my experience. I'm going to you own it. Because this is not your experience, then you have to find something else, was how I interpreted it as I was growing up. That might not be the case for a majority of, like, young LGBT people at the minute, or they're coming through because they've got, like, because options in society has moved, it shifted. Whereas before, when I was growing up, it was very different. So I'll own that bit. So it might be completely changing, which is amazing. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying if someone's like, no, this is what I follow, and it's just me and them, and that's everything, I think that's great. But the bit that I didn't like in the book was when it said it was about biology, about procreating. I was just like, well then, how is it?
Like, it's still in there, that need, and because they're talking about the 4 primal needs, right? The fight, flight, freeze, and sex part. That's what they're talking about. That is primal, built into your brain. Now, I would argue that's built into heteronormative brains. But gay people still need to survive, right? There's still a lot of sex, whether you're actually producing heirs or not, doesn't matter. It's the sex part, right? It's the need to
connect. I think I'd be more comfortable if it was like they need to connect more than you're procreating, because it seems to me if I was thinking of that, it almost feels then if I'm doing this to procreate, then I'm dysfunctioning myself, because it's like. It feels like I'm off rather than I am who I am, and that's okay. No, I think that's
it's just that connectivity, that
there's something in it, the other person that you just want to thingy. And I liked how it was. I mean, they did go in, like, it's weird. I'm criticizing biology by more so like finding the bits in it that I like. It's like when she said about there's opposite bits in you with the person that you're attracted to. So that thing about the quote of opposites attract, and it's like, why am I with this person? Like the amount of people who have like. I'm a morning person, he's a night owl. I'm this, she's that. It's like,
Because a lot of that is about balance, right? Humans seek order, we seek calmness, we seek... And it's all about that survival. Like, if you know you're lacking in something, like my partner, for example, is the polar opposite of me. They're quite introverted, they're quite quiet, they would never be the life and soul of a party. And whilst I'm not, I typically find myself in those roles. Whereas they are... governed by it.
Yes.
But there's also great lessons to be learned in reining my ass in every now and then, right? And her stepping out into her experience a lot more and helping each other navigate those things. Like if she was like me, it wouldn't work.
That's right. Like like there's that bit of like, this is how the difference between like something healthy and codependent is, like if you recognize that other bit in the person, but you need it from that other person all the time to balance you off, rather than you learning to develop it in yourself. That's where codependency happens, opposed to being healthy and like I've grown, I've learned to do this, and this makes it be balanced off or what have you.
Yeah, and I think it should be taught in schools. It should be taught in kind of emotional development, emotional understanding lessons, because now everything is more online with kids, right? You can't have a conversation with someone. You have to message them that their dinner's ready, or you have to, have a conversation with them because they can't do it to you in person.
Yeah.
They're exposed to much more of that immediacy and that undying love online, especially with Love Island and all this other stuff that's kind of culturally being thrown at them, and what those people in Love Island look like.
Yes, and fantasy mechanics of the porn world without a critical eye on it. Like there's a people of a generation before the internet, and I am one of them. Of like,
me too.
Expectations were very different, and all learning about it was very different, and also I think having that ignorance about it was also an opportunity for people to be exploited. Don't let me get that wrong. But you kind of like, this is what regular life's about, and this is like fantasy world or whatever. And then you've now got this the videos that are populated by however they're filmed, whenever they're filmed, and instead of using your imagination to get yourself off or whatever, now you're just finding a video and doing it and watching this mechanics that might never happen to you in real life.
Wouldn't happen in a million years.
But wouldn't happen to you in a million years. There's no point in which you would just like open the door to the postman and all of a sudden it just starts turning into something porny. They're more likely like poor delivery person sweating. They're tired. They're tired. And they're tired. they are carrying.
They've been carrying a 40-pound bag of mail. They're not interested in what electrical device you need fixing. Right. It's quite a long one, so I'll try to kind of break it up and talk about it in between.
Yeah.
So the truth is that the more intimately you know someone, the more clearly you'll see their flaws. So that's that post-rapture.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. This is why marriages fail, why children are abandoned, and why friendships don't last. You might think you love someone until you see the way they act when they're out of money, under pressure, or hungry, or just trying to cope.
Yeah.
Love is something different. Love is choosing. I don't like the word to serve someone. I think to be connected or something, that's an old word.
Yeah.
To be with someone in spite of and I love this bit, their filthy heart. Like, I love that. Like, we've all had experiences that have changed and altered us. But trauma is not an excuse, right? It's an explanation.
Right.
And you should own that. Like, well, I'm like this way because I had an abusive ex. Well, then fix it.
Right.
Right?
Like...
Address it. Don't just place everything on them. I like the love is patient and kind. Love is deliberate. Love is hard. Love is pain and sacrifice. And it's seeing the darkness in another person and defying the impulse to jump ship. And I love that part. I absolutely adore that part, because there are moments when, in my own experience, dealing with family life here, you find yourself kind of dissociating and like, what did I choose? Why am I choosing this?
Yeah. And
then going to bed and waking up with the person you absolutely find you fit with, and knowing why. Or going, like, we went to a concert last night and it was just awesome. Right? Like having those experiences and being excited when someone comes home and all those things years later, right? I'm 3.5 years and nearly 4 years into this, and I still get super excited when they come home.
Oh, that's so lovely.
But scroll back 6 years ago, I was in pure toxicity, chaotic relationship. You know, just accepting. I was in that anxious period, accepting abuse and disrespect, trying to navigate my life, giving up things that I never should have gave up. But if you don't know, you can't fix it. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah,
you reading this book and us having our conversations about it, even me reading this book was kind of like, holy hell, like, oh my goodness. Where has this been? Where has this been? Why have I not been taught this? I could have avoided 5 years of heartache. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I don't ever blame anyone I've been with because they've had to be with me, but also thankful. The way I look at it is being thankful for the experience to have learned something, right?
Yes.
I don't hold on to it as it was X, Y, Z. They're this, or this. It's irrelevant. We've moved on and we're with other people. But if you don't know that these are the stages, and these happen with everyone, whether you're pink, purple, black, white, straight, gay, any of the things. These happen because we are human above everything.
Yeah. I honestly wish I'd read this book sooner. That's how weird it is. I'm just learning the logistics of like.
Yep.
When people say like don't make any major plans with this person for at least 6 months because it could be chemical, and you ride the high. Then when I now knowing that when I meet the next person that I am with or whatever, I think then I'll be like, okay, it's gonna be intense for 6 months or whatever, and that's okay. I've got an expectation now. I know what to expect. There's a difference between, I think this is probably a counselor thing where you just like, I'm totally accepting and understanding of what's going on, and I'm proud. It's because I've got the capacity to do it, doesn't mean I should have to. Like, that's good for that person. That's good for that person, but not for me.
I teach my clients this, especially with people that have been affected by incarceration. The patterns, you already understand where the pattern gets you. It gets you in prison.
Right.
Like picking the same people you're picking, people in active addiction, people that are struggling with everything that humans struggle with. Stop doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome. Something has to shift. So, learn this stuff, read the book. She's fabulous. Yes, it's in the 80s, but it works and it still holds true now. But do your if you'll keep picking the same people and you're wondering why, first of all, stop doing it. Right? Stop. Take a breath. Stop. It's not you. Right, it's the people you're picking, clearly. The same 6 foot blonde haired. No.
What is that? That's very interesting for a therapist. Like, what is it about that? What does that remind you of?
Like, why are you picking crazy women? Is a lot of the time they have this. First of all, it's easier to be in someone else's drama than your own. First of all.
Yes.
Second of all, I can save somebody else, but I can't save myself. And third of all, it temporarily puts off any accountability of I need to deal with my issues because I'm too busy knee deep in somebody else's. Right. So that typically is, the trifecta. Not helping your children having secure attachments by one parent being incarcerated and the other one being addicted to drugs.
No. No. Stop. Just stop. I think the quote I've got is, do not spend too much time trying to be more physically attractive in order just to impress your crush, rather than making yourself mentally attractive. Educate yourself, address your recurring toxic thoughts, and deal with your insecurities and learn to be happy on your own. That's attractive.
Say it again for the people in the back.
Educate yourself, address the toxic things, and deal with your insecurities because once you know them, there's power in that. There's such power in that.
You are responsible for them. Once you know something, you are responsible for it. And I say this 1,000 times. If you didn't know, you didn't know.
Right.
But now you do.
So now you can choose that. Now there can be a different outcome. There can be a different outcome. You know something that you didn't know before, and this gives you like, you might not like it, but that's part of what you're about. And it's like, owning the they're not necessarily socially acceptable parts of your personality or your situation or your hang up. That's equally as important as knowing your strengths, I think.
Absolutely. Knowing your own demons and being aware of them and understanding. And I think we'll talk about this in another one, is triggers and red flags and flaws and things like that.
Yes.
You are responsible for how you portray yourself and what damaging traits you may have. But like I said before, if you don't know, you don't know. But hopefully now you might understand love a little bit better, and that it is constructed. It's not this fairy tale feeling.
There's nothing,
a little bit.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with like watching a rom-com or something. It's great, but also like bear in mind this is a version of something, and you have to educate yourself about this. And I think because we're totally disadvantaged, especially in the UK. It's like skirted around so much. They very, very rarely get into it. I think they need to. Absolutely.
I agree, because you're almost disabling and disadvantaging people from actually existing in a functioning, compassionate relationship, rather than settling for what they think is right. And being kind of chronically unhappy. So no.
Or exploited. You know, like there was one bit, an example that an exploitation thing was, this parent had said to her, partner, the new partner that wasn't a biological connection to the child, and it said like, whenever they're looking after you, you have to be good for them. Then that parent went, the partner defined what being good was.
Yeah.
I think this is the problem we've got in terms of like, if we're not explicit and give the tools to people initially, people will fill in the blanks. Your brain wants to fill in the blanks, but also like there's people willingly with bad intentions of whatever hang-ups they've got to like sit there and fill it in for people. Like, oh, I don't want my kid learning about sex. Well, yes, I can understand that from a certain viewpoint, but you're not equipping them for the world that we live in.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? It's like
children as young as 2 or 3 can understand consent. Forcing them to hug weird relatives does not help them understand they have autonomy over their body.
Right. Like there's a thing about consent. There's things about like respect, relationships, boundaries. You could learn about them. They are all useful things that will rule and develop into as you get older. It's a rolling program. It's not a. It's not
a 6-week crash course.
6-week crash course that you learn about mechanics. It's like how you fit in the new information into the structure, and we're not. Oh, we can't talk about that. You don't have to talk. We're not talking about projecting it on the screen on the back. We're talking about the structure and framework in which people to learn and develop these skills. And I think this is the bit that's getting missed completely, and it can be filled in.
Because the rest of us fill it in with unhealthy habits, unreal expectations, chronic depression, anxiety, medication. Like we're all living the consequences of unrealistic expectations and fuzzy references.
Or blaming yourself, like back to what you were saying, like, oh, it's because I don't want to plan that person on Love Island, that's why I haven't got much of a love life. It's like, no, like, what are you doing this for? I think Pink was really good in terms of, like, she says she works out, but not because she wants to look a certain way, because she wants to feel strong. And that is a much healthier way of using your platform to be putting stuff out there going, do it for these reasons, don't do it because your motivation will be different. Your motivation's different and what it's about is different, and that leaks into relationships and what you want out of stuff. If you just want the frosting on the top, you're never going to get it.
No, and the frosting is just pure sugar and doesn't have any substance to it. If you want to look at it like that, like
absolutely.
And it's read the book, understand attachment, look at your relationships, and it's okay to step out of one if you're not okay, right? It's not some failure as a human being or some. It's always hard to kind of start again or whatever it is that you're dressing it up as. But what's the alternative?
To keep digging yourself in deeper now, like there's strength and power in like educating yourself, knowing the stuff, and figuring it out. Because ultimately, all that's going to happen is you'll end up being happier, God forbid, because you'll be more in tune with who you are as a person at the core, and knowing what you want. Like getting that clarity, and that's all that work can lead you. Just because you've had a scattering of maybe not so great relationships doesn't mean that you're necessarily the problem, but you can eliminate that from the equation by doing the work. Once you're doing the work, then you know.
Do the work.
Yeah, do the work. Yeah. Do the work.
But we'll put the link in at the bottom. Message us, leave a voicemail, talk to us. Of course, we love hearing from you.
Yes.
And yes, thank you.
We'll see you next time.